With the draw of the World Snooker Championship 2020 happening today, the excitement is real with what is happening on Friday, 10 o'clock, the start of the World Championship. Now, I am running a sweepstake for this year's World Championship over on Discord, so it's a £10 entry fee. That will get you one of the 32 players that are playing in this year's World Championship, and if your player is lucky enough to be the one that lifts that glorious old trophy at the end of the 17 days, you win £150, and that doesn't sound like too bad a deal, does it? There's more information if you click the link down below in the description of today's video. Thank you very much for listening, and well, here's the podcast. Hello and welcome to the podcast that does exactly what it says on the tin, Joe and Toby Talk, and today we are talking about the Betfred 2020 World Snooker Championship. You can listen to us on Spotify and all other well-known podcast providers, but of course we are available on YouTube as well. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting World Championship. It's sort of behind closed doors, but also not. It's going to be one of the first events with a crowd, which is going to be very interesting. The draw happened today, the 29th of July 2020, and of course my co-host, Mr TIJ Gaming, Toby Jones, is along with us today to talk about that. So, what do you think of the draw, Toby?
Well, firstly, just thank God this tournament's happening. I thought back in March when all this COVID stuff started, I don't want to make too much of the COVID situation. Let's talk about the snooker as much as we possibly can today, although we will have to talk about COVID a little bit. But at the start of March, I really thought this wouldn't happen. So for the team to have got this into action is huge. It's been really enjoyable watching the qualifiers, and we'll draw on those in a little while. But about the draw, it is a fantastic draw. Just watching them this morning, I thought, oh man, this is brilliant game after brilliant game. Granted, there's a few games in there that don't whet the appetite so much, but the likes of Higgins against Stevens, Ronnie against Unnu, Mark Williams against Alan McManus, and even at the bottom of the draw, Neil Robertson against Liang Bombo. Some of the highlights of the round, and it really whets your appetite to get this started on Friday, doesn't it?
No, definitely, and you know, just like you, I'd like to echo the great work from WST and obviously Barry Hearn to get this tournament going. Obviously, snooker was one of the first sports back after lockdown with the Championship League back in June, and we've obviously also had the Tour Championship, but other than that, to go straight into a fully blown World Championship in a not so controlled venue, you know, actually at the Crucible rather than the Marshall Arena, and from what I've heard, it's all been handled brilliantly, and hats off to them. And no, like you, when I was watching the draw before, just match after match, absolutely brilliant. And I think we've got a good bunch of qualifiers. You know, we'll talk about the standard of them, but they're all in the best possible form, you would say, after winning some of them 4 matches to get here. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, the first match, Friday, 31st of July, 10 AM on the BBC. Defending champion Judd Trump, who's had the season of his life. He's won 6 ranking titles, and he's taken on Tom Ford. How do you see that one going?
Well, I know that we have the whole Crucible curse, and there's been a lot of talk that potentially Judd might go out in the first round, but to be honest, I can't see it. I think Tom Ford is a good player. He's certainly credible. One of the players, I think, if I'm right, is he still inside the top 32?
Yep.
Yeah, so one of the only qualifiers between that 16 and 32 mark. Not many of them, I don't think. Certainly a few shocks in the qualifiers, as Joe has just said. But I think Trump will win it, personally. I think that Trump is almost too good, and I know it sounds very ironic because a lot of players have fallen foul of that Crucible curse, but I don't see Judd Trump doing it. I actually think that Judd Trump has got a very good chance of winning the event this year. That's not just because of his win last year or even the form he's in. I think you just have to appreciate he's one of the best players on the tour at the moment, despite form, whatever. You know, they say class is permanent and form is temporary, that sort of thing. But short answer, I think Judd Trump will win that. Not a canter. Tom Ford is a good player, but I think he'll still get a comfortable win there.
Yeah, you know, I sort of agree. Obviously, the Crucible curse is a thing. Obviously, for anyone at home that doesn't know what the Crucible Curse is, no first-time world champion has come back the next year and defended their crown. Only 2 players have come very close and got to the final. Joe Johnson in 1987 and Ken Doherty, Crafty Ken, darling of Dublin, in 1998, but they fell short, unfortunately for them, and the Crucible Curse does still hold. But Tom Ford, ranked 26 in the world. I always enjoy watching Tom Ford play. He's an excellent break builder, actually, and has 218 centuries to his name. One every 23 frames, apparently. He's going to need at least one in the 19 frames on Friday if he is going to get through, in my opinion. I think it's all about the start. If Tom Ford can get a lead out of that first session, I fancy him to go and finish the job, because something with Judd Trump in the past has been his temperament, and I don't think he's a particularly good player when it gets close and the pressure's high. He's a very good front runner and he can win matches really comfortably, but when it gets close, we've seen Trump melt in the past, and the heat's going to be on him definitely from day one. So I think it's going to go pretty close, and I think it's all going to come down to who comes out of that first session in the lead.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we looked last year, and it's amazing how, I wouldn't say lucky because that's very unfair on the way Judd Trump played, but how the luck swung towards Judd Trump last year was quite amazing, wasn't it, really? He was in a deciding frame with Ronnie O'Sullivan's opponent this year, Tepchire Unnu, and if there hadn't been a miscue from Tepchire Unnu, then we wouldn't be talking about Judd Trump as a world champion. We'd in fact be talking about Judd Trump as a round one departee from last year. So very interesting how these things can go. I'm still of the opinion that Judd Trump will beat Tom Ford. I'd certainly accept your argument. I think it's going to be at least sort of 10-6, 10-7. As I said, it won't be a canter at all. And Tom Ford definitely one of the better qualifiers, so a good opponent for Judd Trump. But it's certainly going to be an interesting match. But I hope Tom Ford can run in close. At the end of the day, we want as much competition as possible, and it's well poised, certainly, that first game.
Yeah, I'm going to go Tom Ford. I'm going to go against the runner play. I'm going to say Tom Ford 10-8 in that first round match. So, but then we've got, I don't know which order you want to go in here. I don't know whether you want to go down the draw or whether we want to talk about
sessions. Let's go down the draw.
Sessions.
Let's get to Yan Bingtao next.
So yeah, Yan Bingtao, obviously world number 16, straight through to the Crucible for the first time in his career. And he's a strange one, Yan Bingtao. He plays very well. He's actually very high on the 1 year list, but he's only won the one ranked event in Riga, obviously, at the start of the year, when basically nobody turned up because the flight was cancelled from Luton Airport or something.
God, that feels so long ago now. Well, I mean, it isn't over a year ago?
Yeah, over a year ago. But he's playing Elliot Slesser, obviously Crucible debutant and player from the northeast, and he's had a few good results in his career. Certainly beaten Ronnie O'Sullivan a couple of times. I think he got the semi-final of the Northern Ireland Open one year. I might be wrong about that, but how do you see that one going?
It's certainly an interesting, wasn't it? I don't really know what to make of either player, because whilst I haven't seen a lot of Elliot Slesser, I admit I haven't seen a lot of Yan Bingtao either. What I've seen of Yan, as he likes to be known, I don't think it'll be Bingtao on the telly, it'll be Yan, so I have to get used to that.
That's because of the way Chinese names work. We call him Yan Bingtao, but Yan is actually his surname. Bingtao is his forename, so that's why.
What a strange name. What a strange name. But oh well. Let's not talk about Chinese forenames today. So, Bingtao against Elliot. If we want to go that way, let's talk about Yan against Slesser then. As you say, Bingtao... Oh, I've already done it. Oh well. Bingtao's a seed at the Crucible for the first time. Slesser the first debutant, and I can't really put an honest pick on who's going to win this match. You would say Bingtao is the strong favourite purely because Slesser is a Crucible debutant and he's not that brilliant in the rankings, and maybe he didn't have to face some of the better players qualify, but whoever you're facing qualifying to get through, it's still a brilliant achievement, so not taking that away from him or trying to discredit him at all. But I do think Bingtao will win that one. Again, if Slesser comes out well, a little bit like Tom Ford, he's certainly got a chance, and we might see a James Cale situation where he can surprise him. But I think going fairly risk-free for this one, I think Jan will get through to the next round, and I think that Jan will be quite glad of that draw personally against Slesser.
Yeah, there could have been some real battles for Jan.
Yeah.
In the draw, and yeah, I think he'll be quite pleased, but he'll be wary that Slesser is a good player, and I think Slesser will take a lot of inspiration from a fellow North East player in Gary Wilson. And I think they practiced together a little bit, and obviously Wilson got the semi-final last year against all odds. But Elliot, I think again it all depends on the start. If Jan Bingtao goes 3 or 4 up, I think Slesser will probably capitulate and it'll be 10-3, 10-4. But get off to a good start against Bingtao, and he's bang under pressure, because remember, these qualifiers have played at least 2 matches to get here, and they're going to be a lot fresher and sharper than some players that haven't picked up a cue for nearly 4 months. I know Jan...
It's a very good point to make. It's a really good point to make, that, actually, that some of these qualifiers have played, depending on course of where you came in, whether that's the second qualifying round, third, or the Judgment Day qualifiers that were coined. So some of these players have played over first to 40 frames, and that's going to be really crucial going into the Crucible. I don't know if there are, I think Higgins isn't one, but there's surely got to be one player there who didn't play in either the Championship League or the Tour Championship. I suppose Ding's one, isn't he?
Yeah, Ding is definitely one. I know Jan played in the Tour Championship, but obviously went out in the first round.
Mark Williams been another one there as well.
Yeah.
So there's a few players here who haven't picked up a cue, and we'll move on to those matches a little bit later concerning the likes of Mark Williams. But, playing against Alan McManus, who's in good form, it's really going to be a good tie, as this one will probably be as well. But, it's going to be interesting, very interesting. Obviously, it's very unique this year, and that makes it even more exciting for me.
So who are you going for, Jan Bingtao?
Yeah,
same here. So we've both got Jan going through. So looking down, we've got Tour Championship winner Stephen Maguire, also UK Championship finalist, and he's had a bit of a comeback this season. He's spent a few years outside of the top 16. I think he got back in at some point last year, and this year he's gone from strength to strength. He's taken it a bit more seriously, if you like, and has reaped the rewards really, and winning that Tour Championship in June, I think will do him the world of good. But he's coming up against Martin Gould, who actually surprised me a lot in qualifying. He's had a really poor season. He was fighting for his place on the tour, and he came through with flying colours against Graham Dott, who, I mean, we were saying he could be a qualifier that could go all the way. But Martin Gould, what do you think he can pose against Stephen Maguire?
I think that Martin Gould qualifying, particularly against Graham Dott, I think that out of all the qualifiers in the last round, Graham Dott was obviously the toughest to beat. Former world champion, his credibility, you don't really have to talk about it too much. Everybody knows about how good Graham Dott is as a player. So for Martin Gould to have gone and beaten 10-6 was a really good achievement. It was going to be one of the better games of the last round, but I thought no, Graham Dott's going to beat him. So for Martin Gould to beat is a really impressive one, and this actually is one of the most not underrated maybe, but undervalued of all these games really, because you've got Steve Maguire in good form, coming off that Tour Championship win. You've got not Graham Dott, Martin Gould also in good form, beating Graham Dott and doing well in the qualifiers. So it's a really tough match to call, and I think this could be one of the closer ones of the round. I have gone for the seeded player, Stephen Maguire. And I know a lot of pundits, and really it's that classic argument really. Well, he's in good form, so he's certainly a name who could win it this year. And to some degree I agree with that, and I'd love to see him do well. But I think it's a bit of an argument that although he's had the experience, I think when you get to the Crucible, none of that truly matters. Do you know what I mean? I think that whether you've had a brilliant season like Trump or a terrible season like Martin Gould, the Crucible does funny things to a player. And I think Steve Maguire will still win this one, but it's going to be very closely run. I wouldn't be surprised to see a deciding frame. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get to sort of a 10-8 or 10-9, because Martin Gould's a real battler. And it's going to be a really good match. I think Maguire will just about edge it, but don't be surprised to see Martin Gould in the last 16.
I've actually gone against the seed again here. I fancy Gould to beat Maguire.
Yeah.
Maguire's a very hot and cold player now. He's had an excellent season, but as you say, in that Crucible cauldron, and we forget Maguire had a deciding frame against Tiang Penfei this time last year, and then he had a deciding frame against James Cahill in the last 16. So Maguire squeaked through to the quarterfinals last year, and that, I believe, was his first run since 2012. I think he kept losing in the first round before that, but Martin Gould, a former top 16 player, won the German Masters a few years ago. I fancy him to win that, and I think it'll be 10-7. I'm going for that one.
Interesting. I can certainly see it. It's just something making me think, I think Maguire's just about got the edge. But like I said earlier, I really wouldn't be surprised to see Gould in the next round. I think it's one of those, and as I said earlier, it is really one of the closer matches, one of the undervalued matches. And I think out of all the matches, it's one that I'm looking forward to one of the most, I have to say.
I think, if that was a matchup in 2013, people would be really excited about that. But because Gould has sort of gone away for a couple of years, people have almost forgot how good he is. But speaking of underrated matches, not many people have talked about this one, but Kyron Wilson versus Anthony Hamilton, Sheriff of Pottingham. First Crucible appearance since 2008.
2008.
Which I can't believe. As obviously somebody that's watched snooker for a long time now, and Anthony Hamilton, former Crucible quarterfinalist, he was regularly in the top 16, and to not be there since 2008 is crazy. But playing Kyron Wilson, who again quite a hot and cold player, but at the Crucible has decent pedigree. He's obviously got to the semi-finals in the past. So how do you see that one going?
Like you say, Wilson a hot and cold player. This season he's got to 2 finals of the Welsh Open and Gibraltar Open. I remember that match against Sean Murphy in the Welsh Open. Oh dear. And then semi-final of the Grand Prix and the World Open. It's a very strange match, like you say. Anthony Hamilton, the first appearance since for 12 years, and this is another one that could run quite close. Kyron Wilson, I think, even more than Stephen Maguire, a hot and cold player, and when you see Kyron Wilson come out in frame one, you never know what version of Kyron you're going to get. A very clinical Kyron or a player who's pretty sloppy. And I'm going to go for the boring approach here, and believe me, I haven't gone for all 16 seeds, even though all the first 4 players have been seeds that I've selected. But again, it's a very close one. I'm just about going to edge Kyron Wilson out here. I think Kyron Wilson will win it, but Anthony Hamilton, very good competitor. And, it's going to be a really close one. As I said before, looking at that draw, Gould and Hamilton in that last 16 is a matchup that I really wouldn't be surprised to see.
I think a lot of people would quite like to see that, actually.
Yeah.
Nothing against Maguire or Wilson. I agree with you. I think it could go very close. I think Anthony Hamilton has to turn up. That's the problem with the older players on the circuit. He's 49 years old, same age as Alan McManus, who, they have some good results now and again, but they're not consistently at the back end of tournaments. So Anthony Hamilton is one of the best break builders in the game on his day, but he has to turn up, otherwise it is going to be a really one-sided match against Kyron, because I think Kyron has the potential to be a future world champion, personally. So it's obvious it could be really close, or it won't be very close. I'm going to say that it's either going to be 10-9 or 10-2 in my opinion. I don't see it being anywhere in between. But yeah, I think Wilson will get through that one, and I think with that half the draw, if Judd Trump goes earlier, I think Kyron Wilson could have a very good tournament.
Exactly, it's a point that I was just about to bring up. Actually, it's that first 4 matches and that kind of very top quarter of the draw is fascinating, because if you take Judd Trump out of the equation, then like you say, it really is it's a lottery, and Kyron Wilson sure is well placed. But as I've just discussed, if a poor Kyron Wilson comes out there, it's very probable that a qualifier could be in the last 8. Maybe 2 qualifiers. It's not against the wealth of possibility. So it's fascinating. But I think out of those 8 players, who do you see being the 2 in the quarterfinal?
I'm going to go Yan Bingtao and Karen Wilson.
Interesting. I'll say Judd. I think I'm going to go with Judd. And I think I will go with Maguire. I think just going from a data point of view and a form point of view, I'll go with Trump and Maguire. But going more with my heart, I'll say Trump. Again, I understand what you're saying about Trump, and in my heart of hearts, I wouldn't mind Trump going out, but I can't go away from that idea of Trump. So I think maybe more of a risky prediction. I'll say Trump and Martin Gould.
Oh.
In there, I think that
even though you've backed Maguire to beat Gould.
Well, I have backed Maguire. I agree, but as I said, that Martin Gould against Maguire match really is one of the most underrated ties.
It's going to be a 10-1 thrashing for Maguire, isn't it? Well, after we've said all this.
It's always the way, isn't it? When you call something's going to be very close, and it's an absolute smashing. But that's what we're here for, to be proved to be absolute idiots when all our predictions are wrong. But again, a very interesting top 4 matches, and the interest and the whetting of appetites doesn't stop there. Look at match number 5.
Wow. This was one of the ones where my ears pricked a bit when I was listening to the draw, and John Higgins obviously been to the last 3 finals, 4-time world champion, and he's playing Matthew Stevens, who's back at the Crucible after not qualifying last year. I think 2018 was probably the last time he was there, and 2-time finalist. Got within 2 frames of winning it twice, and then multiple semi-finals as recent as 2012 against Ronnie. And I think it proposes to be a very close match. I worry it won't be, though.
Yes, this was one of the matches we talked about earlier, actually. We didn't talk about many of them, but going into this, because this is one of the highlights of the draw in terms of namesake, we did have a little chat about this, and I do agree with you. I think that, and I said this earlier, I do stand by this. I think that John Higgins is probably the worst player for Matthew Stevens to draw. I think if Matthew Stevens drew anybody else, whether that be Ronnie, Trump, or any of the seeded players, I would probably back Matthew Stevens. But I think John Higgins, he's just a player that turns up in the big events. And you've got that big stat to back that up, that he's got to the final the last 3 years without winning. I mean, if John Higgins won this year, I'd be incredibly pleased, just from a standpoint of him. If he gets to the final again and loses, I think I might cry, as well as him probably. But, I mean, there's just no way. A little bit like that Trump match. Matthew Stevens is a very good player, and as I said before, if he plays anybody else, I think he's got a real chance. I just can't see Higgins not winning that match. I think that it's funny, really. If Higgins comes up against somebody who's lesser ranked, I don't know, let's chuck Elliot Slessor in there, I think there's a bit more not necessarily intrigue, but interest in that match, and it could go either way. But somehow, for me, John Higgins will see he's got Matthew Stevens in the other end, and he'll go, right, he'll be really, really, really focused. And it's been said many times before, if you want somebody to win a game for you, not hopefully putting a bet on, but John Higgins is a man who you'd pick, and I hope it's a close one, and there's a part of me that thinks it'll be a close one, but I'm going to back John Higgins to win that. So again, 5 out of 5 seeds. As I've said, there will be a stage in this where I will go for an unseeded player, but one of the matches of the first round, no doubt about that, but I'm going to back John Higgins here. But a brilliant thing for Matthew Stevens to get to this point, full stop. Really chuffed that he's at the Crucible this year.
Yeah, me too, and Matthew Stevens is one of my favourite players to watch, actually, and I think, as I say, I think it'll be a good match to watch. It won't necessarily be close, but Higgins didn't play that well in the Tour Championship, and it'll be interesting to see how he's doing. Obviously got the last 3 finals, but I'm with you. I think Higgins will just shade that one, but he could win it quite comfortably as well. I don't see Matthew Stevens winning that match unless he plays really, really well. And if he does get through, he's got every chance of getting through to the semi-final, to be quite honest with you. I think whoever wins that match is going to have an excellent chance to get to the semi-final.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
Speaking of semi-finals, obviously last year's semi-finalist got to the deciding frame. Very emotional match against John Higgins. We could have a repeat of that very quickly. Dave Gilbert versus Kurt Mafflin.
Interesting tie. I, however, think, and this is for the first time, finally, Gary Wilson dropped out in the qualifiers, the other semi-finalists from last year, and I think that David Gilbert's going to follow him quite quickly. I like Gilbert, and there's a very good chance he could get through and do well. And his highlight of the year, getting to the English Open, still hasn't got that ranking event win, beaten by Selby. I think it was 9-1 or 10-1. It was quite a battering in the end from Mark Selby. And the highlight of the season for Mafflin, again over a year ago now, getting to the semis of the Riga Masters. But this is one of the matches that I think the unseeded player will win. I don't know a lot about Kurt Mafflin in terms of how seeing him play this year. Again, he's not done too well, but I think I'd take that with a pinch of salt because Tour Championship, Championship League, the only real two events you can take into account. And to be honest, I'm not taking those into account too much anyway. So I'm gonna go and get to the grain here. I'm gonna say the unseeded player. Without knowing too much about how Kurt's played and watching him play, I've just got a feeling about this one more than a data point of view. I've got a feeling that Kurt Mafflin's going to get through here.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one. I think, haven't seen Dave Gilbert since the World Championship. I'm not sure he's kicked on as much as people may have hoped. I can't remember whether he did well at the Masters or not. But
I don't think so. I remember him playing. Was that the Grand Prix against Ronnie?
Yeah, Grand Prix against Ronnie.
He gave him a good game. But honestly, I think apart from that, I haven't seen him for most of the season, which tells me that he's not done particularly well in the big events, or else I'd have watched him multiple times.
Obviously, he got to the final of the English Open, but again, thrashed by Selby in the final. Yeah. And I think it'll be a really tough match for him against Kurt Mafflin. I think Dave will win it, though. I think that I
certainly hope so. I like Dave Gilbert. He's one of my favourite players.
Over the 19 frames, I fancy Dave Gilbert to get 10 of them. So
that's fair enough.
So yeah, I'm going to go for Dave Gilbert. I think it could be quite a comfortable one, 10-3. Kurt Mafflin's a good player. I don't think he's consistent enough to bring it to the Crucible, but we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting with the reduced crowds, how much it affects how well the qualifiers play. So, but no, I'm going to go Dave Gilbert for that one.
Interesting.
So next, your mate Jack Lazowski, the jackpot, got as far as the second round, I think, at the World Championship in the past, and got absolutely hammered 13-2, I think, by John Higgins a couple of years ago. And so Jack Lazowski, I think, is ranked 12 or 13, and it's quite unbelievable to think that that's the case, because Jack's another one that doesn't seem to do very well. He got the final in Riga, was it, or the semi-final in Riga, and
it was. He got to the Scottish Open final. I know
got to the Scottish Open final, yeah. Events. But I know Jack Lazowski was very quickly the top-seeded player in Riga at the start of the season, and people was thinking that was going to be his breakthrough, but obviously it turned out to be Yan Bingtao's breakthrough. But he's taken on a tough cookie in Anthony McGill, who got to the quarterfinal in the past on his debut, and I think he's been at the Crucible 8 consecutive years. Again, former top 16 player. I think that's going to be a really tough ride for Jack Lazowski.
I couldn't agree more. I'm a bit sick of the commentators talking about, well, he's a good player, Lazowski, but he's flattered to deceive a bit, and it's absolutely right, but I'm a bit sick of hearing it every year. And I want to talk a bit more professionally about the player, because we are in a professional capacity on this podcast, so I won't say he's rubbish or whatever, or anything that I might possibly say before, but I agree with those commentators, and that he has flattered to deceive, and how he is in the top 16, in some ways, is a little bit baffling for me. Not Mafflin, but baffling. So I would actually say, for me, that McGill is the favourite to win out of those two. I look at those two and I think that McGill's got the better chance. Both players had a fairly quiet season. We talked about Jack Lazowski earlier, and McGill also had a quiet season. Got to the quarter-final of the shootout, but not really taking that into consideration too much, and also got to the last 16 of the Welsh Open. But I am going to go for the unseeded player, so twice in 2 matches. I'm going to go for Anthony McGill here, really because Jack Lazowski, as I've said before, not keen on him as a player, but that would be the wrong word to use, but I just don't think he's got the quality. I really don't. I just don't see it. And I think McGill, as you've said, he's been at the Crucible many times, so that won't faze him too much, and I think he's got a real chance. So I think McGill's going to be the player in the last 16.
Yeah, I agree. I think McGill will win this one. I'm not as scathing of Lazowski as you are. I think he is a good player. He just doesn't quite have that all-round quality. And he reminds me a lot of...
I'll agree with that.
He reminds me a lot of Trump a few years ago, actually. A player that sort of goes for everything.
All pot and no safety.
Yeah, what Trump did is rounded his game, and funnily enough, found that he won a few more tournaments. And I don't think Lazowski will win 6 tournaments in 2 seasons' time, but I think if he starts becoming a better all-round player, I think he'll do a lot better. And certainly at the Crucible, over 19 frames, it's going to be tough for him to just pot his way to victory. And he tends to get in a bit of a huff as well when things are not going his way. So McGill gets a good start. I think McGill wins it comfortably, to be quite honest with you. But it could go close. Again, if Lazowski gets off to a flyer, we might see a different result there. But I can't see that happening. I would back McGill in that match. So that brings us to the final round in this half of the draw, and that's Mark Allen versus Jamie Clark. I didn't think I'd be saying Jamie Clark qualified for the Crucible at the start of this week, I must be honest. Nothing against Jamie Clark. I think he is a good player. Certainly didn't expect him to qualify, though, and, fair play to him.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I think that... not really a player that he'd want to be facing, though, in Mark Allen. I think it's a very tough one to start with. Mark Allen, of course, got to the final of the Tour Championships. Saw off Selby quite quickly, didn't he, in that semi-final? That was
and he, of course, beat Sean Murphy when Sean Murphy knocked in 6 tons against him, and Mark Allen beat him in the end. And
goodness me, that was a great match. But as you say, Jamie Clark made it to the Crucible. Brilliant for him. Happy for him. Nice to see another debutant here. And it's his first appearance, obviously, at the Crucible. But I think if we're talking honestly here, I think as realisticness goes, I can't see Jamie Clark beating Mark Allen. I think Mark Allen is a player who, again, like a lot of these, can blow hot and cold. And a little bit like Lazowski, can get riled up and frustrated. But I think there would have to be quite a big turn-up for Jamie Clark to win. So I have gone for the seeded player on this occasion.
Yeah. I agree. I think Mark Allen has a very good chance of getting to the final this year, actually, if he gets through this match. Obviously, I represented Mark Allen in the Virtual World Championship as well, so...
and you couldn't win it for him, could you?
Couldn't win it for him, but he's going to have to do it himself. But I think Mark Allen will be pretty happy with that draw. No disrespect to Jamie Clark, but if Mark Allen was getting Matthew Stevens or a Martin Gould, I think we could well be seeing him go out. But I think maybe the occasion will get a bit much for Jamie. Certainly I've seen him at the Welsh Open on the TV table and at the Championship League, and he looked a little bit edgy. A little bit like the likes of Harvey Chandler or Lewis Heathcote or whatever. But, we could see a shock, and Mark Allen has certainly had his fair share of first-round defeats at the Crucible. So it could well be a shock, but overall...
I think it's the most one-sided match, if you like, isn't it, in the top half of the draw. So... there's no pressure on Jamie Clark in my eyes, so it could well be one of those matches where no one's expecting him to win. And as you say, Mark Allen could quite easily go out. I agree there.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. Anyway, so that's the top half of the draw. So out of that top half, who are your semi-finalists?
So let's just quickly look at the bottom 4 matches first, just to have a look at the 2 players quarter final. Then we can go off that and work out semi final, because it all gets a bit too confusing sometimes, doesn't it? So I think John Higgins has got to be one of the quarter finalists for me. If we're going off Kurt Mafflin beating Gilbert, then I think John Higgins gets past him, and I think Mark Allen will be the other quarter finalist again. Although McGill will beat Lazowski, I think. Even if Lazowski wins, I think there's too much quality there. So I think out of Higgins and Allen, I'll go with Higgins. So that's the first semi-finalist. And again, I'm going to say Judd Trump. So a repeat of last year's final for the semi-final on that side. Trump against Higgins, my 2 semi-finalists.
I think that would be a really top draw match if that was to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it would be a lot closer this year as well. If Higgins plays well enough to get to the semi-final again, I think he'll give Trump a better running. But yeah, that's the top half of the draw, which is absolutely insane. And at this point of the podcast, I'm just going to advertise something that myself and Toby are involved in. A World Snooker Championship sweepstake, Toby. I've put it together on Discord. £10 entry gets you one of the 32 players. Deadline is Thursday, the night before at 9 PM. So if you want to get involved in that, there's a link down below in the description that you can check out. And well, you could win £150, from a £10 entry. I bet you would take that bet, wouldn't you, Toby?
Oh Christ, I would. I've took many bets in my time, and they're a lot worse off than that. Just as long as I don't get Jamie Clark, that's all.
Yes, yeah. You do have a 1 in 32 chance of getting either Judd Trump or Jamie Clark. So you choose which one you would prefer. But looking down the rest of the draw, so we've got the second half of the draw now, and opening up that one is possibly the pick of the round in terms of the matches. Mark Williams, 3-time world champion, obviously won it in 2018. A lot of ranking points coming off for him this season, and he's playing the Angles himself, oldest player since Steve Davis in 2010 to qualify for the Crucible, Alan McManus. By jingle.
What a brilliant story. What a story. It's a real shame that Jimmy's not here as well, and potentially Ken, because there was a real chance of Jimmy or Ken qualifying, but just sadly it didn't happen for either of those. But the wheels fell into Alan McManus' place, really. I'll tell you what, I've got that phrase all wrong, but oh well, we'll run with it. But with Ali Carter going out, that definitely helped Alan McManus, and Heathcote played very well against Ali Carter and played well against Alan McManus, but over a best of 19, Heathcote hadn't got what it took. So Alan McManus is the player who gets here, and I'm chuffed for him. And I did go out on a limb before the qualifiers and say, within reason, whoever Mark Williams faced in the first round, he will go out, because he is the most laid-back man in snooker at the moment. And I think that Mark Williams is finished, to be honest, as a top rank snooker player. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would be chuffed for Mark Williams to get to the final and win it, but I just can't see it. So I'm going to go against the grain here. It'd be brilliant to see Alan McManus in the last 16. I'm a fan of both of these players, but I just can't see Mark Williams doing it. I think that McManus will be the man in the last 16. And looking at the other match, Bingham and Carty, I think Bingham's playing pretty decently. I think he's hanging off that Masters win a little bit too much, potentially, in my estimations of Bingham, but Alan McManus could quite easily make his way to the quarter-final, so fascinating there. But I'm going to say McManus to beat Mark Williams. I think that Mark Williams won't be whooped, it won't be a walkover, but I think McManus will get the better of him.
I agree. I think unless the occasion gets to McManus, and like we said about these older players, sometimes they don't turn up, and but I think McManus will turn up against Mark Williams. He'll be bang up for it. He'll probably be wearing his tartan outfit again, and obviously had a memorable run to the semi-final back in 2016, and only went down 17-12, I think it was, to Ding Junhui to get to the final. So yeah. McManus has got Crucible pedigree, and certainly got the game to trouble Mark Williams, but Mark Williams won't be bothered either way. I think, as you say, he's the most laid-back man in snooker at the moment, and Williams on his day will win it comfortably, but too many times this season, Williams has just not played very well, and well, I think I agree with you. McManus could get through, and I think it could well be another memorable run for him if the draw goes his way.
I just think the competitive spirit's gone for Mark Williams. It's nice to see sometimes, and it's a good laugh. I remember it was the German Mass or something along those lines. He came out after the first session and said to the Eurosport presenters that he played crap and seemed quite laid back about it. And although that's good to see in some ways, you wouldn't see a Judd Trump or a Ronnie come out and say, I mean, potentially Ronnie, but Ronnie's a bit of a different kettle of fish altogether. But you wouldn't see another player come and say that and kind of be all jokey about it. And that's what makes me worry about Mark Williams. So, on paper, as you say, Mark Williams on his day will walk it, but I think Mark Williams' day's gone, unfortunately.
Well, we'll just have to see. I mean, many people have written off Mark Williams in the past.
True.
Yeah, but, we'll just have to see with that one. I think it'll be a really good match, though, and I'm looking forward to watching it. So,
when's that one on?
Oh, that's good question.
Is that a question that can only be answered by looking at the internet? Is it?
Well, I do have it somewhere. So we've got Mark Williams plays on Friday at 7 and Saturday at 7. So both prime time.
Nice and early. Right, that's my weekend sorted. Brilliant.
There you go. Yeah, so Friday 7 p.m. and Saturday 7 p.m. for
excellent.
The 3-time world champion in good old Angles. So next we've got Stu Bingham, who's one of your favourite players, and former world champion, won the Masters this year, but this season hasn't done a whole lot other than win the Masters. A bit like a certain other player that we'll come to straight after this, and he's playing Ashley Carty. Now, I think Bingham will be quite happy with this draw because again, Bingham could have got much tougher opening round opponents, which I think would have easily beaten Bingham. But I think Bingham will fancy the job against Carty.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more with that. I like Bingham, and I think you're right. If he'd have faced someone the likes of maybe Unnu or somebody like that, you'd be going, oh, well, that could be Bingham going. But one thing that plays to Ashley Carty is that he's played pretty well since the comeback. He played well in the Championship League, didn't he? He was in that group with Ken Doherty, Neil Robertson and Kurt Mafflin. Two of the other guys are in the tournament, so think of that what you will. But Ashley Carty, he's looking to be a decent player, but I think it would be one step too far for him to beat Bingham. I've just written down in my notes quite simply that Bingham's too good for Carty, but as you say, Bingham will be quite happy with that draw.
Definitely, and he's playing on that opening morning alongside Judd Trump, so the sort of central cameras won't be on Bingham, so that's a little bit of pressure off him, if you like. Obviously he's still on the red button or whatever, but nobody's going to be talking about that Bingham match, so and hopefully that'll stand him in good stead. And I think he could have a decent run at it if he does get through that first round, but we'll just have to see. Another player that's been very quiet, he's done one thing this season, winning the UK Championship, but has done nothing before and nothing since, and obviously hasn't played since lockdown, which will be the only player in the draw, I think, that hasn't, and that's Ding Junhui against Mark King, who hasn't been there since 2013. I couldn't believe that, actually. And funnily enough, Steve Davis, when he qualified in 2010, the player he beat in the first round was Mark King, so there's a bit of trivia for you. But I don't know, how do you see King doing against Ding?
Well, there you go. It's a bit of trivia for us. I think Mark Williams is another player. Has he played since lockdown?
Oh no, yeah, he hasn't. Correct.
So Mark Williams and Ding. A very unusual story with Ding. I felt that him against Maguire. There's been we were talking about this a little yesterday, actually, talking about the Triple Crown events this season. We had Ding and Maguire in the final of the UK's. We had Ali Carter and Stuart Brigham in the final of the Masters. It's been quite a bizarre season where the Triple Crown events are concerned, so take from that what you will. We could have another surprise at Sheffield in the next few weeks, and I think because Ding's not been in any form since the UK's, and given that given the strangeness that he hasn't played since lockdown, obviously because of the COVID situation, I'm going to go with Mark King here. He's only really had a highlight this season of qualifying for the quarterfinals at Riga, but again, you take that with a pinch of salt because of the situation that there weren't many players there. But I am going to go for the lesser ranked player here. I think that Mark King, as you've said, he's a good player. It's a surprise he hasn't been there since 2013. But I just don't think Ding's in any form. Obviously, if Ding does win, there's quite an exciting match potentially against his old mucker Ronnie O'Sullivan in the next round, but I can't see it. I think Mark King will get through there.
I've actually gone for King as well here. Purely because, like you, we don't know what form Ding is in, and he hasn't been in any form other than the UK Championship. Which even then, I would argue he didn't. Other than Ronnie, he didn't knock out any players I wasn't expecting him to knock out. So, I'm gonna go King. I think it'll be close, 10-8. I'm gonna go, but again, it's all about the start. If Ding could quite easily be 8-1 up after the first session, and that's that. But if King gets in there, I think if he takes it close, I think he'll come out on top. So another cracking match coming up here, and there will be fireworks, but it'll probably be a letdown, no doubt. Ronnie O'Sullivan, Ronnie O'Sullivan, 5-time world champion, obviously. Arguably the greatest player of all time. Hasn't had the best of seasons, but he's coming up against Tepchai Nu, who won his first ranked event last year at the shootout, and he's actually pretty high on the 1-year list, is Nu. And the two quickest players in the game, it's going to be an absolute cracker, I think. I think this one's Sunday afternoon and Monday morning. These two matches, or this match, sorry, the two sessions of it. Sunday 2:30 and Monday 10 a.m. For Ronnie and Nu. How do you see this one going?
Well, for Ronnie to go out the first round one season would be crazy against James Cahill, but for him to go out 2 times would be bonkers, but it could happen. Nu, not really a draw that Ronnie would want. I think that maybe potentially only a player potentially like Matthew Williams or Liang Wenbo would be worse for Ronnie.
Matthew Williams?
Matthew Williams, well, there you go. I was combining two greats of the sport there. But Matthew Stevens, that's the one. At least I didn't say Matthew or Nu, which would be incredibly confusing. But anyway, back to the match. I think that Ronnie will get through this one. Nu's been incredibly unlucky when he's qualified for the Crucible because he drew Higgins. Obviously, it was Judd Trump last year, wasn't it, in that first round match? And now this year he's drawn Ronnie O'Sullivan. So incredibly unlucky for Nu, and I think it might be another time unlucky here, unfortunately for him. I think it's going to be a fast match. I kind of agree with what you said earlier on that although Nu has got the pace, I think that Ronnie could just smash him in the first few frames. Ronnie's got that pace more than anybody on the tour, really. Nu has got it, but Ronnie has got that brilliant play about him. He's just so clinical sometimes. It's incredible to see, obviously, that brilliant century and other times where he's shown his pace. But I think if Ronnie blows him away in that first session and he leads by 4 or 5, then it could be too much for Nu. It's going to be a good match, as you say, probably a letdown, but I am going to go for the Rocket there to go through.
Yeah, I can't agree more, really. I love watching Tepchai play, but again, he's another player that kind of crumbles under pressure, and unless Nu is playing flawless snooker, I don't see how he can possibly beat Ronnie O'Sullivan. Unless Ronnie is completely off his game like he was last year. Obviously, Ronnie was visibly unwell last year, and still should have beaten James Cahill, bluntly. Even though Cahill played brilliantly to win that match, I think Ronnie very disappointed to lose it. I just don't see how Ronnie loses this match if he plays even 70% of his game. Because as you say, since Ronnie's come back, obviously at the Championship League, he won something like 15 frames in a row and then lost against Bingham, which anyone can do. So, he did nothing wrong at the Championship League and knocked in a load of centuries. And I think that the sort of lower key role of the crowd and he's not the favourite this year. He's not the person everybody's talking about. I think Ronnie could quite easily go very far in this tournament with the pressure off his shoulders. But he's got to get through that first round. But I think it'll really open up for him after that if he can get through it.
I agree with that. It was a bit like last year, wasn't it? I know Trump in his 8 last year.
Yeah, Trump was in his 8.
I think he was in his 8, but apart from that, it would be no disrespect to the other players, it'd be a fairly easy road to the third round, which of course is the quarter-final. And I think if Ronnie wins this match, it's very hard not to see him in the semi-final, really. I can't see anybody standing in Ronnie's way.
Yeah, I think Ronnie gets through this match. I think he's going to get to the final. I don't see anyone that can beat him over first 25 frames and possibly 33 frames. You're looking at the likes of Sean Murphy and Selby. Yeah. If Selby plays well, of course he can beat Ronnie, but he hasn't got a great recent record against Ronnie. And obviously Robertson, but we'll talk about all those in due course. But I fancy Ronnie to win, and I fancy him for a 1-4-7. So I'm going to go.
That'll be great to see.
I'm going to go 10-5 Ronnie in that one.
So if Ronnie doesn't get through, who's the player you see getting to the two you see getting to the quarter-final?
I think if TIJ beats Ronnie, I think it'll give him the confidence to beat either Ding or King.
Yeah.
And I fancy McManus's chances, actually, to get through the quarters. So we could well have Unnu versus McManus for a place in the semi-final.
That would be bonkers. Yeah, unbelievable and brilliant, wouldn't it?
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about him a little bit just then, but Mark Selby, former world number 1 for such a long period, hasn't had the best of times the last couple of seasons, but still won 2 ranking tournaments this year, 3 times world champion, of course. Went out to Gary Wilson in the second round last year, I believe. But he's playing Jordan Brown, and I bet you if there's one player in this draw that breathed a sigh of relief today, I think it would have been Mark Selby when he seen the draw.
Well, it's quite funny, isn't it, actually? All the players who we kind of thought might be at risk of a first round dropout, on the majority of the occasions have actually got quite a nice draw. Of course, Mark Selby being one of those. Who we're looking at as well? We're looking at Yan Bingtao potentially, and who else have we got? Mark Allen, of course, as well, and Stuart Bingham. But there's quite a few in there that wouldn't have liked a tough draw and haven't got a tough draw, so very glad about that. And Mark Selby definitely the most glad, the gladdest, I don't know if that's a word, of them all. And Jordan Brown done very well to qualify, but a little bit like the Jamie Clark situation. I just think that Mark Selby's too good for Jordan Brown.
Yeah.
I don't fancy his chances in that group of 8, to be quite honest. I think that there's a case for Sean, not so much Barry Hawkins maybe, but either of that Robertson or Wenbo crowd to stop Selby going too far into the tournament. But I think that Selby will get to the last 16 at least.
Yeah, no disrespect to Jordan Brown. I actually haven't seen much of him play, but I think that's a very, very tough match. Obviously, Selby can win any match playing the worst snooker that I've ever seen. I've watched it happen, that Selby not play well at all and win a match. So even if he's not playing well against Jordan Brown, I fancy him to get through. Unless, again, it's like TIJ, unless Jordan Brown is playing flawless snooker, knocking in centuries galore, I don't see how he can beat Mark Selby.
I hope Dennis is commentating on that one.
But we'll see. Obviously hope for the best for Jordan Brown, and I'd love to see a close match. We've seen it in the past many times at the Crucible where we see a huge upset, but I don't see it happening. I think Selby will win, and I think it could be quite one-sided, 10-2, 10-3 in my opinion, and he'll be a relieved man that he hasn't got McManus or Matthew Stevens, because I honestly think he'd be up against an experienced player at the Crucible right about now. But going to a man that's had a bit of a resurgence in the last 12 months. It all started with that 10-0 win over Liu Hongheo in the first round last year, and did very well against Neil Robertson, but didn't quite get through the last 16. And that's Shaun Murphy, who has obviously won a couple of ranked events this season. He's back into the world's top 8, and on the 1 year list he's number 2, I believe. So an excellent season for Shaun Murphy, and he's got Noppon Saingham in the first round. And how do you rate Shaun's chances this year?
Well, I think a lot of people, maybe apart from that Maguire argument, a lot of people are fancying Murphy for their favourite to win the tournament this year. And I'm not far off that point of view. He's got a very chance of winning. He's in good form, of course, with that Welsh Open and China Championship win this year. And has played well in other tournaments, of course. And looking at Noppon Saingham's form this year, there's absolutely nothing of note. So he's a good player, Saingham. Again, all of them have to be to get through the qualifiers. It's always worth remembering that. But it's another case of, I think Murphy's just too good for him. I definitely don't see a 10-0 beating like last year. And I think it'll probably be a 10-5, 10-6, but a little bit like quite a few of these matches, I think it'll be a comfortable win for Shaun Murphy. And I think Shaun Murphy will be very pleased with that, because given that Mark Selby's in the other court, if you like, I think that he's got a very good chance of getting through to at least the quarterfinals.
No, I totally agree. I think, again, Murphy's going to have to get off to a good start. He doesn't want to give himself work to do against Noppon, but I think he'll comfortably make it through that match. And as you say, I think we could very well be looking at a semi-finalist straight away with Shaun Murphy, in my opinion. And we'll see how it goes. But yeah, definitely going for a Murphy win there. So next we've got one of the best Crucible records in recent years, Barry Hawkins, but hasn't had the best of times in the certainly the last couple of seasons on the snooker tour in general. He's provisionally going to drop to number 19 in the world after this World Championship, so he's going to have a good run to keep his top 16 place. And he's taken on Federer of the Bays, apparently, Alexander Erzenbacher, who is another player that's done very, very well to qualify. He hasn't done a great deal in his career so far. He beat Ronnie at the Welsh Open last season. But, what do you think of this match? Do you think Barry will have enough to get through, or do you think we could have a shock?
I think a lot of these matches, I've just said it, and this is another clear example. Barry Hawkins is a player who didn't want a tough draw, and no disrespect to Erzenbacher, but being a debutant at the Crucible comes with enough pressure, so Barry Hawkins will be happy about that. I am going to say Hawkins here, but in the last few minutes I have thought, I don't know, I feel like Erzenbacher is a bit of an unknown quantity. I don't know what it is about him compared to the others, maybe because he is Swiss, I don't know, but because he's a bit of an unknown quantity, I'm not sure whether to change my opinion. I think I will go with Hawkins, and potentially Hawkins' quality could be too good for Erzenbacher, but the way that Hawkins has played in the last few years, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Swiss man in the last 16.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, really. Erzenbacher, kept up with a couple of his matches, and he's a very good break builder, is Erzenbacher. So if he can score heavy, I see him winning the match. But as you say, it's all about how he handles the Crucible pressure, and maybe Hawkins can turn up and play well. He usually does at the Crucible. I'd be very surprised to see Hawkins get beaten, but I don't think we'll see a long Crucible run for Hawkins, but I'd like to be proven wrong. I'd love to see Barry win a major at some point, but as you say, he just seems to be in decline the last couple of years, and it's all about getting that form back, I suppose. But I'm going to go for Hawkins. I'm going to go 10-7. I think it could be quite a long, scrappy match. I don't actually know when they're playing. I'll quickly get up the schedule. So Barry Hawkins is Tuesday 7 PM and Wednesday 2:30, so quite late on in the first round. And I'm glad the second session isn't a 7 p.m. one, because I think it would go quite long into the night. That match, but I could be proven wrong. But it would be nice to see Barry get through. So finally, out of all of these matches, we've spent a long time talking about them. We've got your man, your favourite player, Neil Robertson, who has had a sensational couple of years in the sport, and is probably second only to Judd Trump, really, in the grand scheme of things. But since lockdown, maybe aided by that hair, he's not exactly done anything, and has actually played reasonably poorly. But so has Judd Trump, in all fairness. But he's playing Liang Wenbo, who came through qualifying, made a 1-4-1 break in the final frame against Fergal O'Brien to get through, and I think Robertson has possibly got the toughest straw of the lot.
I couldn't agree more, and I was pretty fearful when I heard that he's got Liang Wenbo, to be honest. Beat Fergal O'Brien by 10 frames to 9, and with a bit of a dubious potential decision of Liang potentially committing a foul, but we haven't got the time to talk about that today, for goodness sake. But I said before the tournament that whoever he drew, again, to a degree, he should be worried, should Robertson. I don't really know what's gone on with him, and I think this goes to even before lockdown. He went and won the Grand Prix, and then I just don't know what happened to him, really. He just doesn't seem to be too clinical. In the Championship League, he was nothing short of really abysmal, to be quite honest. I thought, right, he's one of those in that group who's got a very easy chance of getting through and very much flat to deceive, and did the same again, albeit against a well-playing Maguire in the Tour Championship. So, for the first time in quite a while, first time since that Dean King match, I'm going to go and get the seed. I don't want Wenbo to win against Robertson, because I'd love to see Robertson win it. He's playing real good form, but this is now 10 years since he's won the World Championship. I just don't see it, though. I think Liang Wenbo's going to beat him. I don't want it to happen, but Liang Wenbo, again, with that side of the draw, I think that bot mate, maybe with Sean Murphy, the exception of Sean Murphy, Liang has got a really good chance, should he play to his full potential, to go really far into the tournament.
Definitely, and again, it's another player who crumbles under pressure usually, but did very well against Fergal, to be fair to him. But, I think if Liang beats Neil, I agree with you. I think he could go very far, but it's all about holding those nerves in and playing as focused as he can, because he can go a bit boisterous, Liang Wenbo, but he's a great player to watch. He's called the Firecracker, and that's one of the best nicknames in the sport for me. But Robertson, if Robertson survives this first round, I think he'll go far. But it's about getting through that first round match. It's for everyone to just get a foothold in the competition. That's what you need. Exactly. In my opinion. But those are the 16 matches. You've heard our opinion on who might go through. I'm gonna back Robertson in that last match. But it could go either way, as we've said. So let us know down in the comments what you think is going to happen in that first round, and who do you think could get through all the way to the final. And with that, we're going to talk about who we think might win the tournament, and give a few names, maybe a little wild card to throw in there as well. So you go first. Who do you think is going to win the World Championship?
Well, if we go for that 3 or 4 names model, I think that we both are in agreement that Sean Murphy's got to be in there, aren't we? Mm-hmm. I think Sean Murphy's got to be in there. I know that you don't think so much, but I think Judd Trump is another man that's got to be in that quest to win a second successive Crucible title. I would also put John Higgins in there. Again, a player who might not, but I've really got an opinion that John Higgins could make it. And to be honest, I think from the other 8, I can't look much further than Ronnie O'Sullivan. But I think maybe 2 wild cards, in quotation marks. I think that Maguire, it's definitely a point that Maguire has got a chance because of how well he's played. But I wouldn't say that so much. And to go completely off-piste, I think that the most surprising thing that could happen this year, I will plumb for Liang Wenbo. That I think is the most surprising thing that could happen within any sort of reason.
Yeah.
Because I don't see any other names. I was singing Gould's praises, but I don't think he's going to go that far. I don't even see a man like Mark Allen or Mark Selby really pulling up trumps, but that's what a forecast is all about. I've been doing a university assignment about forecasts in the last few weeks, and my God, have I believed that forecasts are usually wrong. So we're probably going to be completely wrong, but my 4 names, just to reiterate again: Ronnie O'Sullivan, Judd Trump, John Higgins and Shaun Murphy.
And if you had to pick just one of them, who would you go for?
Ooh. Well, I'll whittle it down to 2 first, Shaun Murphy or Judd. And I'll say Judd Trump.
Okay.
There's just something in my mind that makes me feel he's going to do it.
Wow. The Liang Wenbo one threw me completely, but I'm going to be boring here and almost agree with you. I think Shaun Murphy again is a player that has played well all season, and I'll be very surprised if he doesn't at least get to the quarterfinals, and maybe he'll get through to the semi-final, possibly the final, and if he does, he's got every chance of winning it. Of course, I think another player. I think without the pressure on him, I think Ronnie is going to have a good run in the tournament. He's due a good run at the Worlds, and I think we could see him do very well. He's got to be in the conversation. He played very well at the Championship League, in my opinion. Neil Robertson for me as well. He's had an excellent season, and if he's been practicing hard and he gets through that first match, I think he'll go deep. And a 4th player. I'm going to go Maguire as my 4th pick. Just like you, I think he's played very well recently. He's had a very good season. I think if he can get through that first round, he'll go quite deep into the tournament. Now, wild card. Wild card.
There's not really much you can say. I just can't look at anybody apart from Wenbo as a player who could really surprise. I mean, you could go for Alan McManus, but I just can't see it.
I think a wild card for somebody that will surprise you. I think I'm gonna go McGill. Just might get to the quarters or something. I'm not saying he's gonna win it. I think he could pull up a few surprises. Maybe Anthony Hamilton as well. Could do quite well. And obviously other names in there: Dave Gilbert, Kyron Wilson, on their day can do some damage. But that's interesting. But the last couple of days, I've really been feeling that Ronnie's going to win it. All this time I've been going Murphy or Robertson, but the last couple of days, thinking about the way he played at the Championship League, the things he's been saying in the press, he wants to play in everything next year. I think all the right signs are there for him to win it. I don't think Judd Trump will win it. I don't think he's playing well enough at the moment, despite the season he's had. I still think he'll go out in the first round, but we'll see. But I'm going to go Ronnie, and you've went Judd Trump, haven't you? So there you go. Those are
we've got relatively boring the
two favourites,
top 3 players really on the betting cards, but that's the way it is sometimes. I just can't see there being that much of a surprise this year.
I think in times like this, you sort of look to the best players, the best teams, to rise to the top, and I think that's going to be the case more than ever. Although in the Championship League it was completely the opposite, so we could be wrong.
Can you really make any sort of comparison between the Championship League and the Crucible?
Well, exactly.
So, to be honest, it's a fair point, because from a data analyst point of view, it's one of only 2 tournaments you can seriously go off to gauge who's going to do well in this tournament. But I think even the Tour Championship, you can only take some sort of credibility of that, because
longer matches, really we did see them play over 2 sessions, and actually the standard was really, really good at the Tour Championship. And my standouts were the likes of Mark Allen, Shaun Murphy, and Stephen Maguire. So either those three. I mean, Mark Allen's somebody we haven't talked about at all as a contender, but actually, looking at his half of the draw, he could do very, very well if he gets through the first couple of rounds. But yeah, we'll sort of leave it there with the speculation of it all, and you guys at home can let us know down in the comment section on the YouTube version of this, or if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you tweet us as well at Capped Goodspeed for me, and I don't know what yours is, Toby.
Oh dear.
At Toby Jones 22, is it?
That's the
there
one.
You go.
See, I know you knew it.
There you go. So at Capped Goodspeed for me, and at Toby Jones 22 for him. But no, it's been a nice little conversation about the World Championship.
Absolutely.
I think just to finish off, talk about the coverage of the Worlds, and obviously we've got full BBC coverage for this tournament, which is always the best way, and we've also got Eurosport.
We'll stop there, yeah.
We've got Eurosport. I think Matchroom Live might be doing stuff as well. I'm not
I
entirely
think so,
sure.
possibly, yeah.
But are you looking forward to watching it on the telly?
I can't wait. I think the timing of this event has actually turned out to be perfect. I'm off work for the next few weeks on holiday, which is fantastic, and it's turned out perfectly. But it's a real good time as well. I was fearing that all the sport would be back and it was too jam-packed, but actually they've found quite a nice gap. We've got the football that's not on now. I mean, you've got the European football, but as a Liverpool fan, I couldn't care less because we won the league and we're not in European football, so oh well. Of course, there's not too much going on. We've got the Formula 1, the cricket, etc., etc., but the snooker's got quite a nice place, quite a nice gap, and out of the last few World Championships, this is the one I am looking forward to so much. Some of the ties in this are incredible, and I always feel that some of the charm goes after that first round. I think that the first round is always the most exciting of the World Championship, obviously the most variable, I think, things that can happen, but I think some of that magic goes after the first round, so I'm hoping that there are some shocks, but I'm also hoping that the quality does rise to the top.
I think, last year it was when Ronnie went out, there was such a flat atmosphere for a good few days, and I just really hope that doesn't happen again, because like him or loathe him with Ronnie, snooker tournaments are a better place with him in it, and I think we've seen that at the Masters earlier this year. He didn't take part in that, and it just loses a bit of its appeal, rightly or wrongly. We might still see a fantastic standard of snooker, but a Ronnie that goes deep into the World Championship, I think, makes it a better World Championship for me, and more entertaining and more drama because of the stuff he says in the press and whatever. It brings more eyes on it, and that's what we want. But no, I think that's about that for this podcast. It's been an hour and 13 minutes of wonderful talk. Obviously, before I mentioned the World Snooker Championship sweepstakes, so that there's a link to that down below. First come, first serve. 32 players can take part in that, and obviously that's helping towards the two-phase project as well, which if you want to find out more, it's on my channel homepage. But anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below. Let us know down in the comments any topics you'd like us to talk about. We'll also be doing a full review of the World Championship as well at the end of it, like we have done the last couple of years as well. So make sure that you stick about for that. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you follow us so that you don't miss an episode. Do you have any final remarks, Toby?
My only remark is, don't miss any of it. Don't miss a minute. Sport is back, and we should jolly well appreciate it.
Nah, couldn't put it better myself. It's all over the BBC, so make sure you've got the BBC Sport app, and obviously online as well, so you can keep up to date with every minute of action and listen to the wonderful soothing tones of John Virgo and Dennis Taylor. I'm really hoping so. It hasn't been confirmed that they're commentating yet, but I'm assuming that's going to be the case, and snooker's always better when those two are commentating. But thank you very much for listening or for watching on YouTube, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Goodbye.
Goodbye.